Hello and welcome again to Day 3 of the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable. My name is Bill Flanagan. I'm the host of Our Region's Business on WPXI Channel 11, as well as the Chief Corporate Relations Officer for the Allegheny Conference on Community Development. And it's been our pleasure and our honor at the Allegheny Conference to help convene this event over the past 8 years since its inception. And what a great 8 years they've been. Our region has made some progress, but clearly not enough, as the waves of social protest against racial injustice have demonstrated over the course of 2020 in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so the topics we've been talking about this week and that we'll be talking about today are even more important than ever before and certainly have a greater sense of urgency. The reality is none of us would be here today had it not been for the leadership of the then incoming Allegheny County Executive Rich Fitzgerald, who was collared by Tim Stevens during the campaign and in the lead up to his election to make a commitment to really help do something about advancement within corporate Pittsburgh for African Americans and other minorities. And it's really through the leadership of Rich that we've come together and we've stayed together for the past 8 years. And it's my great pleasure to welcome Rich Fitzgerald to deliver some opening remarks.
Greetings. County Executive Rich Fitzgerald here again, doing things obviously a little differently there as we come together virtually at the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable. This was a commitment that I made when I was running for county executive in 2011. And over these last 9 years, we've had these roundtable discussions in which we've brought to the table our corporate community, our philanthropic community, our universities, our labor unions, government officials. And again, this year we're going to be doing it a little differently. Our great universities, and I want to thank Point Park University for being the host this year virtually. Over the years, Duquesne University has hosted a number of these events and great partners to those universities. President Gormley and President Hennigan of those two great universities, we appreciate their continued work. This is something that's so important. It's a core value of mine and my administration, because we know historically in this country, in our state, and in our region, there have been, the opportunities have not been equal, particularly for African Americans and people of color. And we want to make sure that we, in the present day time, is a community and a region that is open and opportunities for all. And I could just highlight some of the things that my administration has been able to do in the last 9 years. Over those 9 years, we've had the opportunity to hire 4,400 county employees. 1,100 of them have been African American, 25%. In a population of Allegheny County that is approximately 13% African American, so almost double the population of people that we have hired in my administration. 28% of those hires have been people of color, and over 60% have been women. So we've really tried to make sure opportunities in my administration have happened. And that doesn't just happen in all the hires. It also happens in the leadership positions that we have. Fully 16% of the directors and deputy directors who are leading the various departments and agencies in Allegheny County are African American. And the board appointments as well. The people who sit and make the policy-making decisions at the Airport Authority, the Port Authority, the SEA, and other various boards and authorities that we have in Allegheny County. Fully 19% of those board appointments are African American. So we want to make sure at the policy-making, throughout the employment, and the leadership that African Americans have those opportunities. And we're proud of the fact that we're continuing to move forward. And our equity and inclusion continues to talk about things like our MBE, WBE department. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute and how we've actually made a change there. But during 2019, we made some great progress. We had over 230 counseling sessions during that year. 56 new firms were certified as MBE, WBE firms to bring our total to over almost 600 certified firms here in Allegheny County. But we made a change at the end of 2019, coming into 2020. We renamed and reconstituted the MBE CEWBE department to become an equity and inclusion department. So it doesn't just deal with contracts, it actually deals with more of reaching out and helping even out in the private sector in places that we can, because we know it's not just about opportunities that occur within government contracts, government employment. It really is broader than that, and we need to make sure things like that happen. We have a lot of work to do. We've made some progress. One of the good things I've been proudest of is that for entrepreneurs in this region, this was rated as one of the top 10 entrepreneurial counties, regions in the country by Lending Tree magazine. We actually placed number 8 on the list, and that's, we would like to do even better than that. But one of the things we've done is we've had a higher percentage of folks who are entrepreneurs who are African American, and including entrepreneurs that have businesses with more than $500,000 of revenue, and also entrepreneurs and businesses that have been in business for over 6 years. So longevity, revenues, as well as the amount of entrepreneurs, we're beating the national average. We want to continue that record and continue to do the things we're doing. One of the things that we did this year through our Public Defender's Office was put a project in place called Project Reset. And what that allows, what Project Reset allows to happen, is to allow people to have their records expunged. And it's the many folks who have gotten something on their record that they probably should have never been put on there in the first place. To go through the process to get a record expunged is bureaucratic, it's cumbersome, and you need some legal expertise to do that. And for most people, it's a very difficult process. So our public defender has started with Elliot Halsey, who's now a Common Pleas Court judge, and now Matt Dugan, a present-day public defender, leads a project in which people can find out if their record is eligible for expungement, and then we will go through the process to help that happen. And we've had over 100 already, and another 100 in the queue that will be expunged. And what that allows to have happen is when people go to get a job, when people apply for housing, when they apply for education, they don't have that record that's on there, that criminal record or some record on there that's going to prevent them from being able to have that opportunity. So. And unfortunately, in our society, many of the folks that affects are people of color and African Americans. So we want to make sure that we're able to help folks like that. But what this really is about is bringing people to the table, because what we do know is much about business and much about opportunities and contracts and purchase orders and those type of things happen because we buy from people that we know. We buy from people that we feel comfortable with. We buy from people in our community that we know have a good reputation. And when you're able to make those contacts between the buyer and the seller, and that's what we want to be able to do. We want to make sure that not only with the government contracts that we want to make sure opportunities, but in the private sector, in the nonprofits, our universities, all the folks that are out there doing business with other firms, we want to make sure that minority firms get a fair shot at getting that business. So this is an important initiative that we've been working on a number of years. Tim Stevens obviously has taken the lead on a lot of this, but so many of our corporate partners have stepped up and been part of it, from our healthcare, our energy sector, our IT sector, again, the meds and eds in our university and academia, our financial sector, our sports teams, et cetera, have all come to the fore and become part of this. So this is something we want to continue to do, continue to be proud of, and again, hopefully next year when we get together, we'll do it in person and be able to continue to move forward as a region. Congratulations again. Let's continue to work together, and let's continue to make Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, and southwestern Pennsylvania a region that's a region for all. Thanks.
Rich Fitzgerald, thank you so much, and thanks for your leadership since the inception of the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable 8 years ago. You know, in this unusual virtual roundtable this year, we've had a different theme each day. Day one was really focused on talent attraction and retention. Day two, the focus was on gender equity and human rights. And today, we're going to turn the tables a little bit and focus a little bit on supplier diversity and development and those types of opportunities to create economic opportunities here in our region. And as has been the case each day, my co-host is back with me to tell us a little bit about today's theme and what is in store. Janine Jelks-Seale, the Senior Advisor for the Office of Administration of Allegheny County Human Services. Welcome back.
Thank
what do we
you.
have today?
We have made it to day 3, and as you mentioned, we're talking about supplier diversity and development. Throughout the conference, we've been having a rich conversation about diversity, but more thinking about talent. Now we're transitioning to talk about the businesses that are the lifeblood of our communities in our region, and not only the diversity of those businesses, but what does development mean? The ecosystem that surrounds and supports the growth and the thriving nature of the businesses that are so important to the African American community and so critical to the Pittsburgh region.
Wow. Critical issues for our region. If we want to be competitive with other places, we have to have a really robust, diverse business community.
Exactly. And we'll have a rich discussion, and we'll follow our format as we have from days 1 and days 2. A rich discussion about the things that we've heard throughout this day that are a call to action and are inspiration for us moving forward.
All right. Well, speaking of calls to action and inspiration, one of the great things to emerge out of the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable was the SHARE initiative. And we're going to kick things off today to hear a little bit about that and about important work that's being done by the Eastern Minority Supplier Development Council to really create opportunities in the supply chain for minority-owned businesses throughout our region and to make a lot of matches between sort of buyers of goods and services and the businesses, the smaller businesses that are able to supply them. And to set the scene for this discussion, I'm really pleased to welcome Tricina Cash. She is Vice President for Strategic Partnerships and Corporate Relationships at the Eastern Minority Supplier Development Council. Tricina.
Hello, I'm introducing the Share Pittsburgh video. Share Pittsburgh is a one-of-a-kind annual networking opportunity connecting like-minded businesses, potential customers, diverse suppliers, and business partners for sourcing opportunities. Share Pittsburgh offers a conference of both a keynote and plenary sessions, followed by a virtual matchmaker between diverse businesses and corporate buyers. In response to the COVID crisis, the 2020 event was converted to a virtual event with virtual matchmaking. Registered suppliers will have selected appointments with buyers, as buyers will be matched with suppliers based upon categories and scopes of services for current or future opportunities. This event was first created by the UPMC in 2013, and in the following years became a collaborative effort planned by UPMC, Quebec East, the African American Chamber of Commerce of Western Pennsylvania, PNC Financial Services, the Allegheny County Department of Equity and Inclusion, the Eastern Minority Supplier Development Council, Novoba, Rivers Casino, the City of Pittsburgh, Highmark Health. We want to thank the 2020 Share Pittsburgh sponsors for their ongoing support. They are UPMC, the City of Pittsburgh, the Eastern Minority Supplier Development Council, Novoba, PJ Dick, PNC Financial Services, Rivers Casino, and Quebec East. Enjoy the video.
My name is Valarie Cofield. I'm President and CEO of the Eastern Minority Supplier Development Council. SHARE is about bringing together businesses who buy services, supplies, equipment, resources from diverse businesses.
As businesses and corporations in Pittsburgh, you support the success of our entire campus community, especially our students.
There is an opportunity to make sure that everyone has a part in this new economy that's being built in Pittsburgh. What we can do is see our own economy grow while helping our neighbors and everyone being a part of the next economy.
It's Horace Britton. I am president of CDI Printing Services Incorporated. The advantages for attending the SHARE conference of CDI Printing actually allowed us to get more renowned within the community.
Ted Smith, Director of Sourcing, Giant Eagle. For Giant Eagle, SHARE has been very rewarding to us because it serves the purpose of expanding our supply base and getting familiar with vendors that we would never have access to otherwise.
My name is Paula B. Castleberry. My title is Minority Women Business Coordinator, and the organization I represent is the Pittsburgh Public Schools. It's important for the Pittsburgh Public Schools to support SHARE because we believe in diversity, and we'd like to see our contractors represent the students that we educate on a daily basis. We like for them to see vendors and business owners who represent them and who look like them. And we just think it's important to include everyone.
My name is Gerald Homey. I'm a recruitment specialist in careers to be product manager for Bender Consulting Services. It's important to participate in SHARE because it's important to engage in supplier diversity. Supplier diversity allows companies to engage with the best talent, the best organizations from different backgrounds, and we know that diversity breeds ingenuity for your company.
My name is Derek Wilson. I'm the president and CEO of the Wilson Group. I believe it's important to participate and SHARE on two fronts. One is resources that are made available to you via the corporations, as well as the other MBE, DBE certified vendors, and role models, which are people that I would have an opportunity to look up to and learn from as it pertains to best business practices.
I'm Scott Lammy. I'm Senior Vice President for the UPMC Insurance Services Division. It's a number of things. It's creating opportunities for networking within the MWBDE community, but also obviously with corporate prospect opportunities, really building relationships from among the supplier community with corporations, and really exposing corporations to the great work that these great diverse suppliers are providing to the region.
My name is Fantasy Zellers. My company is Bounce Marketing and Events, and I am the founder and CEO. I have attended SHARE for 3 years, 2 years as a supplier. This is my 3rd year, and I'm attending as the supplier who is producing the whole event. So I think it's important to attend SHARE to support minority businesses like myself, to help us build our businesses.
My name is Tony Silva. I am Director of Supplier Relations at the University of Pittsburgh's Medical Center, UPMC. I am so excited. This year, SHARE 2018 has been a major success. The event has grown tremendously. We have had over 300 matchmaking sessions and about 300 attendees this year.
You support other small businesses by giving back. And so if you continue to give back, then they give back and they give back. And at the end of the day, everyone grows, everyone benefits. It's really the concept of sharing.
Wow, impressive progress with SHARE, and we really do have to salute the leadership of UPMC for stepping up early on in this corporate equity and inclusion roundtable process and offering to bring together big buyers, big companies across our region to share their best suppliers and really open doors to help them grow faster and become bigger themselves. It's really a wonderful story and a great initiative that's been launched here in our region. You know, we've talked every day about the importance of measuring our progress and kind of keeping track of where we are so we know how far we've come and how far we still need to go. And one of the organizations in our community that does just that and plays such a critical role is the Eastern Minority Supplier Development Council. You already met Tricina Cash prior to the SHARE video. But we've asked Tricina to sit down with her boss, Valarie Cofield, the president and CEO of the council, for a discussion about what more we can do in this space and the opportunities that it provides for organizations that will work more to build their diverse supply chains and with minority suppliers. And so here's a conversation with the Eastern Minority Supplier Development Council.
Hello, I'm Tricina Cash, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Corporate Relations for the Eastern Minority Supplier Development Council, also known as the EMSDC. I'm here today with Valarie Cofield, President and CEO of the EMSDC. Valarie has been lauded as a creative thinker with a reputation for identifying unique strategies for creating opportunities for small businesses, facilitating business partnerships, assisting in contract negotiations, developing strategic plans, and serving as a liaison between industry and government. In 2014, Valarie was named a top 30 champion of diversity by Diversity Plus magazine. Just a bit more about EMSDC before we start our conversation. The mission of EMSDC is to stimulate and support economic development opportunities for certified minority business enterprises, developing minority business enterprises to align them with corporations with access that leads to ongoing business relationships, sustainable growth, and capacity building. We're committed to creating opportunities for minority companies to network and work in collaboration towards their mutual success and economic growth. We are committed to ensuring that all minority-owned businesses have access to and are prepared to fully and fairly participate in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. As a catalyst for growth, for the past 40 years, the EMSDC continues to offer new and innovative events, services, and information that supports the success of our certified minority-owned businesses and corporate members. The EMSDC is increasing its corporate membership across all industries and for all sizes of businesses. We're leveraging marketing and communications more fully to help our certified MBEs and corporate members take advantage of the full benefits of our programs and services. EMSDC has over 650 certified MBEs providing goods and services to 104 corporations headquartered in and doing business in our region of Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Southern New Jersey. Buyers and corporations look to EMSDC to identify minority businesses that are capable of handling strategic projects and contracts. The strength of our corporate members and certified MBEs allows EMSDC to continue to refine, improve, and add services that have a positive impact on their success. By the way, EMSDC has offices in Philadelphia as well as in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Hello, Valarie. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Tricina. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Wanted to start by asking you, the EMSDC is an affiliate of the National Minority Supplier Development Council. Can you tell our audience what that means and what does it mean in particular to Pittsburgh?
Well, as an affiliate of the National Minority Supplier Development Council, which is a 50-year-old organization created by the executive order of Richard Nixon at the end of the Civil Rights Movement, and as a result of needing to create opportunities to develop businesses of color inside of urban communities, the formation of this public-private partnership resulted in the National Minority Supplier Development Council. As an affiliate of the NMSDC, we are a part of not only a national network, but a global network of organizations whose sole mission is to build the capacity and expand the engagement of minority-owned businesses, ethnic minority-owned businesses, globally and nationally.
Thank you. So tell us about the impact that EMSDC MBEs have on the economy, prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the declaration of it in March of 2020.
Well, if you look at the data from the EMSDC's economic impact study, you will see that EMSDC businesses were not only job creators, but they had more than $4.3 billion in annual revenues. They contributed $1 billion in wages. They employed 16,000 employees, and 65 of those employees were minority businesses. So the businesses supported by EMSDC have substantial impact to the regional economies that we serve.
Yes, that's wonderful. You know, the COVID crisis has greatly impacted our economy with many businesses shutting down or maybe temporarily or permanently. So some were able to pivot operations and some were able to adapt product lines to tailor current or create new products serving new needs. The study that we've been looking over inside of EMSDC, the McKinsey and Company report out called the COVID-19's effect on minority-owned small businesses in the United States. It talked about a lean towards telling stories of these businesses and then how the government, communities, and corporate America could help and why it's important to do so. They stated, for example, that greater than 40% of minority small businesses have added services to support their communities and employees. Have you seen examples of this occurring within the EMSDC footprint?
In terms of the ability of our businesses to pivot and
Yes.
to take advantage of, absolutely. You know, and it's not, it's across industries. Everything from being able to engage and support the needs of the COVID crisis by supplying PPE, intense and high-level janitorial and sanitation services. We have a MBE that fully converted their distillery operations to provide and to manufacture hand sanitizer. We have MBEs who are now consulting and helping businesses go fully remote. We have one of our MBEs based in Allentown who has operated his business remotely for the last 10 years. And it's a logistics and transportation business. And so what that tells us is that our willingness to pivot is critical to our ability to thrive.
Absolutely. You know, the report also noted that 1.1 million businesses that there are 1.1 million minority-owned businesses in America, and that they employ 8.7 million workers and generate over $1 trillion in economic output. However, these companies, especially those owned and operated by Black people, were less likely to get PPP and EIDL support or even business credit. Of course, a portion of these businesses are not supply chain facing, but how can non-supply chain facing businesses be better supported? And then can you answer the question of how supply chain Black businesses can be better supported?
Well, I think that's a multifaceted question. First of all, the ability for our businesses to secure PPP and EIDL funding really is a case study in the need to form business banking relationships. Too often we think that a depository relationship with a bank constitutes advocacy on our behalf, and it really does not. It's also about preparedness. Our businesses need to have relationships with their banking institution, their financial institutions, where they have advocates on the inside who will push them through the process. Critical to this is that if you don't have someone who is advocating with the underwriter that can tell your business's story from a financial standpoint, it creates a devastating impact when the need arises for you to secure financing. So that's number one. Certainly the haphazard way that PPP was rolled out was a great contributor to the disparate access that not only small businesses, but when you drill down, minority businesses, and when you look even deeper, Black-owned businesses had in the process. The other piece of it is making sure that your financial house is in order. And when I say that, I mean that the requisite documents are on hand and up to date, because that is also critical. It delays you in securing funding when you're scrambling to assemble those financial documents. And it's incumbent upon organizations such as EMSDC, the Chambers of Commerce, any technical assistance organization, whether it's a SBDC or a development center that's associated with a university, to be able to assist collaboratively the businesses that we support. Too often we work in silos, and as a result of working in silos, there is not a cohesive and coherent delivery of services out to our minority business community. And this is particularly true for our Black and brown businesses. When you look at the types of businesses that we have in our communities, more than 50% of those businesses are not necessarily supply chain facing, but they are consumer facing. They do provide a service inside of the community to us. And so it's important that as we are delivering out technical support and services, as we are talking about building capacity, it's not just about supply chain facing businesses, but we really drill deep into understand how we can support the development of ecosystems around the businesses that are already in our communities. You know, I think I shared with you, we were talking earlier, and I talked to you about vertical ownership and how inside of our communities, we do not have vertical ownership of those industries where we are dominant. You know, when we look at the health and beauty industry, it is not enough for us to be a barber and a stylist, but we need to own the verticals within that industry, all the way from the training and licensing to the shops and providing the services, but also the products that come inside of our shops that we're using on our shelves, what we're putting on our bodies and in our hair. And so that critical ownership of the verticals is how we build wealth and we provide support to our entrepreneurs inside of our local communities.
I absolutely agree. And we were also talking about the 3 C's: capital, capacity building, as well as credit. And can you talk a little bit about how obviously many of the certified MBEs that we work with are supply chain facing. For those who are not necessarily supply chain facing, how EMSDC is seeking to put its arms around minority businesses in a larger way?
So it's a couple of different things inside of that. First of all, yes, most businesses engage with EMSDC through the certification process. And anyone who knows me knows that when I have a discussion about the services that EMSDC provides, I will tell you that certification is the least important. Our goal is to get a business contract ready, to have them contract ready, to then connect them to the opportunities that are relevant to the supply chain. But the other part of that is, how do we support one another? I often say it's not the opportunity with the bannered building in the sky. It is often the person sitting to your left or right where you will have the most opportunity and sustainable relationships. And so what that means is that your first connection with EMSDC should not be around certification. Certification is critically important, but it is important at the point that you are securing and pursuing contracts. Prior to that, the most important service that we can provide to you is getting you contract ready, providing you with the resources that will allow you to operate your business efficiently, bring your products to market, tell your story. It is very important that you understand how to pitch. It is very important that you're capitalized, so that access to capital, because once you get the contract, it's too late to secure capital. You need to be well capitalized. And it means not only the traditional banking relationship, but angel investors, potential equity partners, crowdsourcing, crowdfunding. Let's think outside of the box and be more creative. Is there an opportunity to provide an equity stake to someone that is seeking to do some investment? We talk about opportunity zones. Opportunity zones are spaces that minority businesses, particularly Black and brown, have not taken advantage of. And so here's an opportunity for you to find an investor that is looking to direct their monies inside of a business that's located inside of an opportunity zone through an equity partnership. So the role of EMSDC is to help you explore, create strategy, gain access to capital, evaluate your business model, and then develop your pitch so that you can then be connected to the opportunity inside of the supply chain.
Excellent. And one of the ways that I know that EMSDC is seeking to, as I said, put our arms around more of those businesses is through registered and listed. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So back to the certification piece. Oftentimes, most of our businesses, I said full 50% of our businesses or better are not supply chain facing, which means that certification is not necessarily the process that you should pursue in engaging with an organization like EMSDC. And so while we don't have membership the way that a chamber would have, we do offer to businesses that may be consumer facing the opportunity to engage with EMSDC through our listed and registered program. What the listed and registered is if you are a business who is minority owned, and the minimum is 50% for the purposes of listed and registered, 50% minority owned, and you are looking to engage with EMSDC, to attend our events, to have access to our programming and support services, then you are eligible to be listed. And listed simply means that you're in our database as a business. We understand the services that you provide. So your services and your company are listed in our database. You will be on our mailing list, and you will have access to our programs and events at a discounted rate and or for free. If you're registered, we have done more of a pre-certification review of your business and determined that you are a business that is registered, that is 51% owned and control. Well, we're going to say 51% owned. We won't go to the control piece until certification, but you're a 51% owned business. You provide a service, product, and/or solution that is potentially supply chain facing, and you are interested in being engaged with the EMSDC, again, programs, events, and services. If you are a listed or registered business with EMSDC, and within a year of signing on as listed or registered, you decide to convert that status to certification, any fees that are paid for listed and registered will be deducted from any certification fees so that you're not paying double fees. That is intended to ensure that, number one, your access or your engagement point with EMSDC is at the proper level. Certification is a very invasive and extremely detailed process, and it makes no sense for a company that ultimately will not be engaging with the supply chain to become certified initially. But we do believe that there are services and opportunities presented by working with EMSDC that as a listed or registered business, you will benefit from.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to switch to talk a little bit about the work that we do with our corporate members. Talk a little bit about the many corporations we partner with to support them in their creation of more vibrant supplier diversity and development programs, including building strong Tier 2 programs.
Well, as you said in your opening, EMSDC has upwards of 104 corporate members or partners, as I like to refer to them. And I say partners because this really is a partnership when you speak to engaging with diverse businesses, building the capacity of diverse businesses, and ensuring that the ecosystem around your industry is thriving in terms of minority-owned businesses. And so in partnership with these companies, our focus is on, number one, making sure that they are implementing best practices, that it is a top-down strategy. That means that it is integrated into the culture of the enterprise. It is not an afterthought, that adequate resources are are allocated to supplier diversity. That supplier diversity is has metrics that are measured and complied with across the enterprise, so that there is accountability inside of the enterprise, and that it is counted. You know, what gets counted matters, and so what gets measured matters. And so we want to make sure that these businesses are not just doing a check the box programming around supplier diversity, but there is real engagement. There is ownership at all levels of the enterprise, from the buyer and end user all the way through to the C-suite. In addition to that, because many of the corporations that we work with are Fortune 500, Fortune 100, and Fortune 50 companies, critical to the success of their supplier diversity programs is not only an internal commitment, but a strong Tier 2 program. And what Tier 2 means is that many of these corporations will engage Tier 1 suppliers, vendors, service providers to carry out the operations of the organization. It is critical that in carrying out these activities, that the overall supplier diversity strategy and initiative is built into the partnership with their Tier 1 vendors, meaning these Tier 1 vendors are also expected to have strong and robust supplier diversity programs and initiatives, that they are not only executing internally, but they're reporting back to their contract partner. Why this is important is because when you look at the opportunities that often exist, particularly for small diverse businesses, small minority businesses, doing direct business with a corporation may not be the first opportunity. And so what you have to do is build relationships in that Tier 2 space that allows you to be engaged with the contract, but at a Tier 2 level, allowing for more opportunity and also to build capacity. I'm always in favor of keeping businesses closer to the money, so Tier 1 relationships are always the first option. But when you look at some of these contracts, a Tier 2 opportunity oftentimes is more significant than what you may be able to do at a Tier 1 level. And so you can never overlook where the opportunity may be and where your entrance point may actually be with regard to the supply chain.
Excellent. You're absolutely right. Well, I can tell you that the 3-day CEIR conference has included several leaders from some of our corporate partners, such as the University of Pittsburgh, UPMC, and Duquesne Light. The president and CEO of Duquesne Light is actually the keynote for one particular day. And so I wanted to bring that up in light of my next question, is the fact that, of course, we have corporate members in Greater Pittsburgh. And, you know, how do you see it that those corporations that are actually incorporating supplier diversity and development, how can they champion supplier diversity and development to their peers to spark more commitment from corporations who do business here?
Well, you know, corporates are always benchmarking against their peers in their industry. So that's always the first thing, is to benchmark against what's happening in your industry. But also to set the bar, to raise the bar. It's okay to be first. It's okay to realize that the impact of supplier diversity on the larger community is so significant that it is a dereliction of responsibility not to have a robust supplier diversity program, particularly when the product, service, or solution you are offering serves underutilized and underrepresented communities. It is a corporate responsibility to ensure that their customers, their consumers, are also beneficiaries of their spend and of their economic impact. And so it is important that there be rivalry or competition. Let me use the word competition inside of industry so that each pushes the other to a higher level of achievement. What I will say, when you look at some of the partners participating, particularly UPMC and Duquesne Light, is that they don't treat supplier diversity as an afterthought. It is integrated into the ecosystems of those organizations. And that is where the difference is made. When leadership has a commitment to ensuring that diverse suppliers are not only invited, but at the table. You know, they always talk about the difference between inclusion and equity. And so inclusion is, you know, who gets invited to, or diversity and inclusion, I'm sorry. Diversity is who gets invited to the table, and inclusion, or diversity is who gets invited to the table, and inclusion is who actually is at the table. And so that's the critical piece of it, is that there needs to be a clear commitment, not only to making sure that Black and brown businesses are invited, but they're actually beneficiaries and partners and at the table. And this means that there needs to be an understanding of the economic contribution of these businesses to the overall economy. Nothing happens in a vacuum. It is not realistic that one segment of a community is left behind and that community is thriving. When you talk about all lives mattering, you have to literally include all lives. And that means that everyone needs to be at the table and sharing in the fruits of the bounties of the economy, of industry, of the community. And it is critically important that supplier diversity not be an afterthought, because it truly is a differentiator in improving the conditions of the overall economy and community at large. Your regional economy cannot thrive without a strong and robust minority community. And I am particularly talking about the Black and brown community. It does not happen if there is any that are left behind.
Excellent. Now, I just thought of a question to ask you before asking you about what are you proud of what the organization has done. But I wanted to ask you about the connection that we have to the national network. Many folks may not know that there are these categories that we use whenever we're talking about our businesses, and that we actually do represent businesses that have annual revenues that soar as high as $1 billion or more dollars. Can you talk a little bit about that to just give some insight to people who may not know?
So I think the biggest differentiator for EMSDC and every other organization is that we actually do service anywhere from a business that is in their startup phase to multi-billion-dollar businesses. We have some of our largest, what we call Class 4 businesses, right there in Western Pennsylvania. And Class 4 businesses are businesses whose revenues are in excess of $50 million. Well, in Western Pennsylvania, we have businesses who are minority owned, whose revenues are in excess of $250 million. And so when you look at the diversity, I'll use that word, diversity of businesses that we serve and support, EMSDC brings to the supply chain businesses that are mature, businesses that are a part of the innovation economy, businesses that are in the position to hire other minority businesses. And that's another piece of this equation that we cannot overlook. It is not enough to ask others to do the work. We must also do the work ourselves.
Excellent. And I'll end this by asking you, what are you, as President and CEO of EMSDC, most proud of the work that your organization does?
I think what I'm most proud of is how the organization has evolved. I've been with EMSDC for 6 years as of October 8th. Hard to believe that. Time flies when you're having fun. And we survived quite a bit as an organization, a merger, some internal struggles, a pandemic, and living in a virtual environment. And what I'm most proud of is that we've never lost a step. In fact, we've been able to expand the services and supports that we provide to our minority businesses, but also to increase the engagement with our corporate supply chain, with our institutional supply chain, providing them supports and standing up programs that are not only robust, but impactful and measurable. And so what I see is an organization that continues to evolve, that is moving towards the future with a laser focus for ensuring that our impact is not only consistent, but that it builds on itself and that it is thriving.
Thank you so much, Valarie. We really appreciate the time that you've taken with this interview today in support of CEIR. For our audience that's listening, whether you be a minority business or a corporate business or a stakeholder who's interested, you can learn more about the EMSDC at our website of www.emsdc.org. Our contact information is also there, as well as the fact that you can learn what we have done as an organization to pivot during this particularly trying time for our businesses. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you, and congratulations to CEIR on a fantastic conference.
Thank you, Valarie.
Thank you so much, Valarie and Tricina. The EMSDC is doing such important work and can make a real difference for the companies that will work with them, both the big ones that are the buyers and the smaller ones that are looking for opportunities and ways to grow their businesses. You know, one of the big ones that's been involved in this space, and we've already mentioned them for many years, is UPMC. And a company that takes this very seriously, really making sure that they're making progress and making a difference at the same time. And here to give us an update on just how they do that and the progress that they feel they've made and what other organizations can learn from them is George Robinson, the Director of Supplier Diversity and Inclusion at UPMC. George.
Hello, I'm George Robinson II. I am the Director of Supplier Diversity and Inclusion for UPMC, and I'm proud to be here presenting to you on the topic of what measures, or what is measured, gets done. UPMC has had a long-standing history of supporting CEIR and are proud to be here today speaking to you virtually during the 2020 CEIR conference. UPMC Supplier Diversity and Inclusion will celebrate 25 years of continued growth in diverse business utilization in the year 2021. UPMC has had a focus on providing optimal connection between diverse business and our organization's efforts to accomplish life-changing medicine. When I took this position as Director of Supplier Diversity and Inclusion, it came upon me the legacy that Tony Silva had developed in her organization, maturation of our Supplier Diversity and Inclusion program. It is now my objective to grow our program to new heights from what she prepared in this foundational development. And we are definitely appreciative of her and our UPMC senior leadership support of supplier diversity and inclusion. Our diverse business community, while seeing new attention, has been challenged over time with multiple threats. Conversations have surfaced before and now more so today on what the current existence of diverse business is and what the future forecast of what diverse business will be during these unprecedented times. It is not without saying that there have always been challenges to diverse business, but now considering the issues and concerns facing our country and our world, those issues are even more highlighted and more substantive to the existence of our diverse business community. Based upon those conversations, technology advancement, and the growing call to justify diverse business as a part of mainstream commerce, resultant measurements occurred. Many of those measurements have been long-standing, including the customary spend amounts to employee headcount of those diverse businesses. The corporate community wants to know and understand how its business with diverse companies are making impact in the communities that they serve and with the customers that they obtain. You know, this quote here rings home so true today. As Stephen Covey states here, if there's one thing that's certain in business, it's uncertainty. Well, to our diverse business community, there's always been a level of uncertainty. However you want to adjust it or consider it across time, there's always been a level of uncertainty. And it's been our outstanding goal to shore up that uncertainty, to prove to the diverse business community's customers, their consultants, their clients, etc., that they have stability during the existence of their organizations. Again, from the typical business employee headcount, to the ability to secure capital, to the concept of relationship building, and the time between initial interface with a company to payment on a contracted service, there's always been uncertainty in execution of diverse business. How those companies have hedged those risks provides a surety to their clients, their customers, that their businesses are sound. But don't be fooled. Diverse businesses have been enduring uncertainty for a long time. Then COVID-19 hit, George Floyd and many others died, and a resultant response is upon us now with no foreseeable future in sight. What I'd like to provide is a 2020 Q4 update with respect to where our diverse business community is and the things that we are measuring in terms of business growth, business assurity, business support, and things of that nature. Just to give you, the viewer today, a snapshot of what our diverse business community is enduring. We're presently in a national recession. I, as a 41-year-old African-American male, have never seen the likes of a recession until today. Looking at our national businesses, small business is experiencing irreversible losses, with so many of them being forced to close doors. And as it's been said, when small business and mainstream business catch a cold, Black and brown and women-owned businesses, they catch pneumonia and the flu. Job cuts have been announced as recent as October 1st, the start of Q4. And those job cuts are not just in specific industry that you see on the 6 and 11 o'clock news and the 7 a.m. cover stories, but they are all throughout our organizations, and they are just a part of the overall issue surrounding the pandemic poverty in which our nation is grappling with. Diverse businesses are not shielded from this. In fact, they've been taking some of the greatest hits to their existence during these times. And so what does that implication have on CEOs and corporate leadership? And how are they responding? I'd like to introduce the concept of the Overton window. The Overton window is a range of policies politically acceptable to the mainstream population at a moment. A recent presentation given by Declan Kelly, the CEO and chairman of Teneo, he remarked about several different issues within this Overton window that our CEOs and leaders of our corporations are dealing with. CEOs are seeing this Overton window shift on shareholder value for the first time in 50 years, and that now emotional leadership is becoming more paramount. There's a new expectation on CEOs and corporations to solve problems more so than ever than was once relied upon by our government. And most important, some CEOs have engaged in the conversation of societal change, many of which previously were not so moved to do so. And so with this, the speed at which businesses adapt to this new business model is telling, and diverse businesses are being forced to shift at paramount speed in order to survive. And so what does this mean for the supplier diversity environment? And what new measurements are in place that we are looking for and trending? So these new measurements include the ability to demonstrate cost savings through the use of diverse vendors, and really dig deep in the ability to illustrate that to corporations as a part of demonstrating the value of diverse business utilization. New measurements that have come down from CEOs and senior leadership include a better understanding of the market share impacts that those diverse businesses have. Are they able to command larger market share within the industries that they are serving? Or in the instance of today's environment, are they able to remain stable within the confines of the COVID-19 pandemic, the social justice call to action, and so many other issues and concerns surrounding not only the Pittsburgh region, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but the nation? New measurements include the ability to demonstrate a diverse business's impact on corporate revenue. Are they able to help the larger organization stabilize their revenues through their activities, grow their revenue through activities, or are they hindrances on those corporate revenue impacts? And then finally, job stabilization. Are we as corporations able to assist those diverse businesses in stabilizing jobs that impact the communities in which they are hiring and the economies in which they are impacting? So how are we as supplier diversity practitioners and corporate social change agents able to positively impact those ideas? We at UPMC are focused on additional training. And as we look at the changes to our organization, both UPMC and UPMC Health Plan, we have to be able to educate our diverse vending community on the internal changes that are impacting our abilities to engage those diverse businesses in business opportunity. We are also focused on mentoring and being able to pair our senior executives and middle management executives, those individuals that have connectivity to business opportunity, with our diverse vendors. We at UPMC are also focused on internal awareness and educating individuals across our corporation on the importance of supplier diversity and the role that each individual plays in positively impacting the diverse business community through doing business with them. And then finally, there's a new call to action of intentional support of the diverse business community. All four of these categories are being measured, as you see, not only with this foot measurement stick, but the financial measurement stick, the headcount of existing businesses within our region and across our country in which we are engaged in business with. While we are just entering the era of the COVID-19 pandemic, many things are still uncertain. We're unaware of what these national impacts are going to pose upon our diverse business community. And so we stand ready to respond in the best ways that we can to help support the small business community and the diverse business community in particular, as we all go through these uncertain times of the COVID-19 era and the social justice era. As such, I'm George Robinson II. Thank you for listening to me. You can contact me at the information shown on the slide here. And if you'd like more information on our Supplier Diversity and Inclusion program, please visit supplierdiversity.upmc.com. You can also connect with our organization's LinkedIn page at the address shown here. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
George Robinson of UPMC, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. So there's an example of a big company and the benefits that improving a diverse supply chain can have for an organization like UPMC. There are obviously plenty of benefits for smaller businesses in their communities when they have an opportunity, when they can crack that corporate supply chain and be able to build their own businesses. There's a lot to talk about in this space. How do you make it work? What are the benefits that result? And what more does the business community here in our region need to do to really make this even more robust and more successful than it already is. And so we're going to wrap up today's session of the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable with a discussion about just those topics when it comes down to supplier diversity and development. We're going to hear from Rich Taylor, the CEO of Imbutech, Derek Wilson, the CEO of the Wilson Group, and here to lead the conversation is Audrey Russo, the President and CEO of the Pittsburgh Technology Council. Audrey?
Hi, I'm Audrey Russo, President and CEO of the Pittsburgh Technology Council, and I am pretty thrilled to be here this afternoon because we have two great gentlemen who are going to talk about their business. We're going to talk about access, we're going to talk about equity, we're going to talk about prosperity, and we are going to touch on topics that are definitely important to the world that we're all living in now and for tomorrow. So on that note, I am going to pass the baton and ask these two gentlemen to introduce themselves and tell us just a little bit about their companies. And I'm going to start with Richard Taylor. Hi, Richard.
Hi, Audrey.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Glad to be here today.
Really nice to see you.
My name is Richard Taylor. I'm CEO of Imbutech. We are a general construction and electrical construction firm. Just to give you a little bit about our business, there are two sides to the house. We do a lot of federal contracting work as a general contractor. We self-perform electrical work. And so in the commercial market, we go to market as an electrical contractor. So we do a lot of work on in the government space, on military installations around the country for the Department of Energy. We were recently awarded a major contract with NASA to be one of the primary construction firms for the Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio. Worked with the Army Corps of Engineers. And in the commercial space, work on a lot of projects at the Pittsburgh Convention Center, and various projects around the region. One of the things that we're really excited about is a joint venture we recently formed with a company based in Cleveland, Ohio, the A.M. Higley Company. And through that joint venture, of which MBTech is the majority owner and controller of. We are undertaking a large-scale project for the Allegheny Health Network, and really, I think that venture is very relevant to our discussion because I think it provides a model that can have a transformative impact on opportunities for minority-owned businesses in the region, but we'll talk more about that later.
No, that's great. That's great. I like the way that you set the table. So how long have you been in business and how many employees do you have now?
The company was formed in 2003. We have 5 management employees. We're a union contractor. So for manpower, we pull from the hall. So, you know, the size of our workforce will vary depending on the manpower required or the subcontractors required for particular projects. You know, so for example, with this project that I was talking about with the Allegheny Health Network, we expect to bring on an additional 30 or more electricians just for that project. But it really varies depending on the work that we have in front of us.
Thank you, Richard. I would like to now just introduce Derek. Derek Wilson, how are you?
I'm well, and yourself?
I'm pretty good. So let's talk about your business.
The name of my business is called the Wilson Group. I'm the president and CEO. The Wilson Group is a workflow solutions provider. And what I mean by that is anything that delves into the creation, production, distribution, and sharing of information and documents, we can be a benefit and or service to any and all entities. When I say workflow solutions, what I mean is pretty much we have a full line of copiers or MFPs and printers to pull from, interactive communication products, any software solutions that you're looking for. I bought a postage machine company in 2015, so we have postage and post-process. And then most recently, over the last year, we opened up another division, which is called BRM, which is Best Records Management. And we do the whole document storage, destruction, digitization, and pooling of files, very similar to another entity in the marketplace. We have 3 locations. My main building is at RIDC Park, 147 Delta Drive. Then I have a satellite location in South Point on Main Street. And then we have another warehouse in McKees Rocks. Talking about customers, our biggest customer is Pittsburgh Public Schools, which is approximately 800 devices in 70 locations. We do a lot of business in the education space. And then from a corporate standpoint, we have a multitude of big corporations. Probably the one that comes to most people's mind is Schneider Downs. Then we have a significant amount of not-for-profits that we do business with as well. And that's who we are in a nutshell.
So how long have you been in business?
So I used to be the VP of sales for Xerox. And I left them in 2011, July. I had to do a separation agreement with them where I promised not to sell in the copier industry, not to take any of their people, not to open up my own business. That was over August of 2012, and we opened up the doors.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, there can't be a more timely topic than the topic and the importance of making sure that all businesses, both large and small, both publicly and private, help build prosperity and wealth. It's one of the things that I totally care about and am very passionate about. And just listening to the both of you take a risk, it takes a lot to put your, put your shingle out and build a future all on your own. And it takes a lot of relationships, as you've heard from other speakers today, whether it's banking relationships, whether it's leveraging relationships that you've had in a former life, as well as having the doors open for you and vice versa. So I want to jump to Richard. We'll toggle back and forth, but let's just jump to Richard and talk about what are some of the biggest opportunities and risks. So you can talk both sides. What are some of the biggest opportunity and risks in the world right now? We're in a COVID world. We're in a world where there's so much polarization, that we're in a world where there should be lots of opportunities and innovation. Interest rates are at the lowest that they've been, and yet unemployment is at the highest. And yet you, Richard, had a joint venture. You've made some really smart moves it seems like, in the last couple of years, but there are opportunities, and then there's also probably some barriers. So could you speak to that?
So opportunities and risks. I mean, that's the fundamental nature of business, right? There are always opportunities, and you have to balance what the risks are in pursuing them. I think there's, in the environment, overall environment we have today, there are lots of risks, but there are opportunities. So, you know, I remember calling a dear mentor of mine early during the pandemic shutdowns, just to check on her, see how she was doing. And which her coaching was to me, even in that moment, was you need to be thinking about where the opportunities are in this moment. Because even when, you know, there are challenging moments, there are always some avenues of opportunities. You know, I remember a quote, I don't remember who to attribute it to, but it's something like, luck is the residual of hard work. And I'll say similarly, you know, opportunity is the residual of hard work. You know, for us, in the midst of this very challenging and difficult time, we're growing more than we ever have. And it's not because of something that happened overnight. It's laying the foundation, or the foundation that's been laid for many years with a lot of hard work. So, you know, what I would say is the biggest risk of any opportunity is the risk of not performing. Because if you get an opportunity and you don't perform, you not only lose that opportunity, but you will lose many more. And the flip side is, when you get the opportunity, if you ensure that you perform with excellence. You know, I mentor a lot of folks, and you know, one thing I always tell the people I mentor is that excellence creates options. If you perform with excellence, there are more options that open up to you, more opportunities. And so, you know, the opportunities that we're walking into. So, for example, you know, this 5-year, $250 million contract with NASA, you know, shared among 8 firms. You know, that's an opportunity that came, frankly, through a failure. We pursued another opportunity with NASA. We were not successful, but what I did was ask for feedback. What did we do wrong? What could we have done better? What did we need to do differently? And so another opportunity arose, and we took the lessons that we had learned, and, you know, frankly, the biggest part of that evaluation and that contract award was what was our past performance with other customers. And because we had consistently performed at a high level with an extraordinary safety record, you know, it gave, you know, this marquee customer the confidence to say, you know, you will be, and actually they had planned to award it to 10 firms, but they only awarded it to 8 because at the end of the day, there were only 8 firms that really met their criteria. So what I will say is, you know, for those of us in business, every opportunity you have, make sure that you perform with excellence. And when you don't, be humble enough to admit what you did wrong, learn from the mistakes, recalibrate, and go back at it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you also said another thing in there that's really important is the relationships. And it's the relationships that you build over time, and knowing how to essentially leverage those relationships in the moments probably of the most opportunity, which some people might see as the darkest times, but in the most opportunity. So obviously you've been successful and able to do that. And if you fall enough times, you just pick yourself back up. You just get faster, right? Don't you get more callous and faster?
Yeah,
So
I've had plenty of times to fall down, so I've learned how to get back up with God's grace. But you're right. You can't have a fear of failure. You have to just know that you may not succeed. And if you don't, learn the lessons and keep moving.
Right, right. Very candid. Really appreciate your candor on that, Richard. So Derek,
Yes.
in your business, so here you are, you knew a lot about the business that you were in based on probably your years before that in sales and working for Xerox. So you know, BRM and all the related support that you have couldn't be, I mean, it couldn't be more lucrative, right? What a great time to sort of be in that space as people are trying to get out of having things on their desktop, moving things to the cloud, you know, figuring out they don't want paper. You took an opportunity, right? You seized an opportunity that maybe others didn't see. So what were the opportunities and what are some of the risks for you?
Well, I go by a saying in life, and it goes something like this, that opportunity is a perishable commodity. If you allow it to, it'll slip through your hands like a grain of sand. I hate to see that happen to you, my man. So that's really how I live. And I don't believe in failure or losing. And I tell my people on a regular basis that we're not in this to participate. We're in this to dominate. So I knew that going into this business, especially in this region that we're in, that there was a high amount of risk. And I can delve into that later, but I knew that I had a significant amount of relationships that I could weigh on when I opened the doors. I also knew that we could bring to the table what I call competitive distinguishment. And what I mean by that is that, so everybody that is in the space of copiers and printers, that's all they can do. They can sell you a copier, they can sell you a printer. I can do that, but I can also show you a host-to-post workflow solutions provide solution. So from the time you create a document to the time you destroy it or digitize it, all in that space, we can be of benefit and or service. And the benefit of that to the prospect is obviously one back to pat versus 6 or 7 different sales reps, one invoice versus 20 invoices, and a much stronger sense of customer service because I'm very actively involved in the well-being of the business. So when you take that to the next level, you are correct. Grace of God, we've done significantly well during this COVID time, where I can speak to the fact that my numbers right now have been better what they were last year.
That's fabulous. So what are some of the risks though? Talk about some of the risks, because people who are listening need to hear some of the downside too, right? They need to hear a little bit of candor, because it's not, you know, here you are going into a market and you're saying, I can do from soup to nuts, right? You don't need all those people in between. But that takes undoing a lot of relationships for certain people.
Yeah, it does. Initially, obviously, I think the biggest issue that I had when I opened the business was what's called the FUD concept, which stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I was a new entity in the marketplace. Of course, my competition had been around for years and years and years. And the first thing they threw out was, Derek won't make it. He'll go under. Obviously, at the end of the day, that's fine for them to say, but it was up to me to disprove that. And we've been able to do that over and over and over again. And it's just been a blessing to be able to look those people in the face now and say, how do you like me now?
It's great. I'm taking notes on what both of you are saying, because there's some things I want to give you both some credit for, and that FUD is definitely one of them. And getting back to Richard, as he talks about excellence creates options, that to me is also one that's a nugget that I'm going to continue to carry. I'll give you credit. I promise to give you credit for that. But what about today? So what about today? Like there's this whole there's this whole, kind of awakeness that has happened or not happened. I mean, let's really be fair. Some places it's not happened and some places it has, particularly since the murder of George Floyd. and people starting to look at what does it look like in terms of equity and like I like to say, access, right? And because I'm all about prosperity and wealth. And I think once people have wealth, they have power, and then they have power, they have influence. So what's some advice that you have for people who are actually, you know, people of color, people who have not been, had access to, you know, procurement and sales, et cetera? What's a couple of pieces of advice? And realize it's longer than a few minutes, but that's all we have.
Well, I guess the biggest thing I would tell anybody, because I grew up on the north side, I grew up in Manchester, so it wasn't like, you know, somebody handed me anything. But I always tell people that you will become what you believe, okay? And at the end of the day, that's what you have to focus on and throw everything else out the window. And to be honest, in my mind, as a Black person or a person of color, that you have to be 2 to 3 times as good, 2 to 3 times better than your white counterpart to get the same shake or opportunity, just because that's the way of the world. People traditionally propagandize their own race or people. So if 90% of the people making decisions from a business standpoint are not people of color, I believe that the likelihood of those people having an opportunity to shine or show the value they bring to the table is going to be minimal. So I feel like it's my responsibility and people like Richard's responsibility to help and lift people up and have them trust and believe that they can do whatever they want to do. They set their mind to it. And it's true. And I believe that myself and Richard can be prime examples of that.
I agree from just listening to that. Richard, do you want to add to that? What?
Yeah, particularly for African Americans in business. I hear, when I talk to a lot of people, a mistaken presumption that even in the midst of a social awakening, that a corporate buyer is going to engage you from a perspective of that company owes you. And Derek, talking about
nobody owe you nothing.
The best that you can hope for is the opportunity. And it goes back to what I was saying before. When you get that opportunity, you have to perform. And to Derek's point, it's what my mother always told me: you've got to be 3 times better if you're Black just to break even. You know, I won't name names, but you know, I had a call from a customer just the other day. You know, it was a customer where a senior executive had given us an opportunity. We got in, we're performing, and you know, that senior executive is no longer with the company. And someone in mid-level management, you know, was talking to someone on my team and said, hey, you know, that guy's not here anymore. So, you know, we'll see what happens from here. So, you know, don't assume that the era of good feelings is going to last. Don't assume that it's going to extend, you know, beyond the C-suite, because it may or it may not. And you have to deal with, you know, what you were talking about with Derek a few minutes ago. The fundamental nature of getting new customers means that you're taking business from somebody else.
Right.
It's established relationships. They're networks of relationships that you are, when you come in, you're upsetting that balance in that ecosystem. And the nature of ecosystems are they work to return back to their normal state. So, you know, what I would say to people is, you know, if you're looking at opportunities as a minority business person in this environment, don't believe that you will get anything but an opportunity if you still get that.
Right. And
the way you get it, you gotta perform, and expect that you have to perform at a far higher level than your competitors will to stay in that door.
There's a saying that goes, education plus preparation plus resiliency equals success. And that's pretty much how I live, and I expect people around me to live. And nothing, you're not entitled to anything, and nobody's gonna hand you anything. You gotta go out and get it. And I ain't got a problem going out and getting it.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So what's your advice to me as someone who runs the Pittsburgh Technology Council as a white woman? Nothing was handed to me, but I definitely have gone through life with some privilege for sure. What do you want to say to me? What do the both of you think that you want to say to me that think we could carry this torch forward?
I would say to you first, in a joking manner, is that you need to move your MIF or machines in the field from whoever you're with to the will. That's number one. Okay?
I'm took notes on that already. I'm like way ahead of you, Derek.
Okay. Number two is I would say to you that I commend you that you should be doing what you're doing. And the biggest thing I believe that you can do from your role or capacity is to incite change. However that may look throughout your entity and the processes that you currently have in place. But I think the biggest thing you can do is listen to people that may not have a similar background as you do or experiences as you have, and be open to suggestions or change. And I think if everybody does that, then the world would be a much better place. I think people get caught up in, I don't know, in the whole division of things, but you got to understand that this is called the United States of America. And if you're a person of God, it represents, the word of God tells you love, okay? And both of those are in opposite places right now, and they need to be brought back together so that things can go the way that they could or should. And people like George Floyd's death don't go in vain. And a lot of times we talk about things, but at the end of the day, what are we doing? And what are we doing on a consistent basis?
No, thank you for that. What, Richard, do you want to add to that? You want to?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm going to say amen to what Reverend Dr. Wilson said. But seriously, you know, going back to your question, Audrey, first of all, I applaud you for asking the question. And what I would say is, it's about networks. Who do you talk to? Who do you hear from? You know, as a leader and a woman of, you know, a significant amount of influence in a region, there are circles that you operate in that, you know, if you want to hear perspectives different than those, you know, in the echelon where you matriculate, it will take some active effort to reach out to build network. And so, you know, find organizations, you know, I believe there's an organization of young Black coders in the region. Talk to those folks. You know, reach out to EMSDC. They've got a whole network of professionals that they can help you tap into, so that you start to meet different people. And if you sit down with folks and you ask a question like you just asked, in the way that you asked it, where it's clear, hey, I'm really open to this. You're not going to get the real deal the first time, right? You've got to build trust and build relationships. But you will start to hear perspectives different than the perspectives you may have heard, and you'll get knowledge, nuggets of knowledge that you otherwise wouldn't hear, that will apply beyond just the topic that you're asking about, right? You'll learn things, and that's why businesses that pursue diversity in their supply chain, in their employee ranks, consistently outperform those that don't. It's because the more perspectives you have, you know, the more knowledge and insight you have to apply in your primary mission. So, I would say proactively reach out and broaden your network and the people that you hear from.
Well, I would say, as we wrap this up, that I would ask the both of you to do the same of me, so that it's reciprocal.
Mm-hmm.
So that if there are ways that you think I might have access, or there's some perspective that you think you could benefit from, reach out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Reach out. Because that's how we get better, and that's how we get stronger, and that's how new pathways and new neurons are created. I have to tell you that during this time of COVID and through the death of George Floyd, that Tricina and Valarie, both from the Eastern Minority Supplier Development Council, have opened our eyes. They've been tremendous partners in terms of understanding what kinds of things they offer. And they focus on prosperity. They focus exactly on the kinds of things that my organization and myself are really near and dear to my heart, which is money, access, prosperity, equity, right? Those are the things that, to me, in my years of experience, are going to change the needle for individuals and collectiveness. And they have been really tremendous in being inclusive of my organization, which many might say, well, that's interesting, right? I'm like, no, that's a whole new pathway, a whole new set of neurons that we never knew really existed, and now it seems natural. So the awakening on that comes, on both sides, and in this particular example. And, it is a journey, and it's not going to happen overnight. But I think we have overextended our time together, and I just want people to know they need to know your businesses, right? So anyone who's listening to this should know how to get in touch with Derek Wilson, how to get in touch with Richard Taylor, and why, what kinds of services that you do provide. And particularly, Derek, your business in terms of the tech community should be one that everyone knows about. Everyone should know about what you're doing, and the fact that, you have BRM and all, end to end. And Richard, you as well, because working with the trades and working with the skill set of the next iteration includes science and it includes math. And that's part of the next iteration of work as well. So I want to thank both of you. We had Richard Taylor and we had Reverend Derek Wilson, who's doing, I'm calling you Reverend. Is that okay? Is that okay, Derek, that I said that?
So I think Richard said that in jest.
He did. I knew that. But the thing is, you've said so many wise things in the course of a half hour. I jotted all of this down, so I thought I could be eloquent and give you that kind of loving kind of endearment there. So,
that's fine. Absolutely.
Okay, but really, everyone should really know about both of these gentlemen's companies and figure out ways to partner. And I want to thank you both for allowing me to be candid, and vice versa, because that's the only way we're really going to change.
And I want to thank you. I want to thank EMSDC for including us in this important conversation. And hopefully these conversations will continue. And hopefully you and I can have a conversation at some point in time, Audrey.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you all.
And I also just quickly echo your point, Audrey, about the outstanding leadership that Valarie and Tricina provide through EMSDC. They are a critical partner to our business, and they are integral to our growth. And so I'm grateful for the advocacy, the professionalism, the responsiveness, and the leadership and vision that they provide. It benefits the whole state, the whole region. So thank you.
Okay, well, thanks everyone.
Audrey Russo, thank you so much. And thanks as well to Rich Taylor and Derek Wilson. We really appreciate your conversation and your contribution to this year's Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable. Well, it's been a great 3 days. We've covered a lot of important topics, everything from talent development and acquisition and advancement to gender equity and human rights, and of course today, supplier diversity and development. And it's an important conversation, and clearly one that needs to continue on into the 9th year of the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable. But as we said at the beginning, really none of this would be happening without the leadership of our head facilitator, Tim Stevens, of the Black Political Empowerment Project. And as I say goodbye and wish you well, and thank you for allowing me to participate in this event again, it's my pleasure to introduce Tim Stevens.
As Chair and CEO of the Black Political Empowerment Project, BPEP, it's been my honor to partner with members of the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable, CEIR Roundtable Working Group, to present our 8th annual CEIR conference hosted this year at Point Park University. We give very special thanks to Andy Conti, Olivia Valio, and Lisa Knapp from Point Park University Center for Media Innovation for their wonderful contributions to produce the first ever CEIR conference, the virtual conference. We thank Bill Flanagan, Chief Corporate Relations Officer for Allegheny Conference on Community Development, who was truly instrumental in introducing us to the wonderful staff here at Point Park University and for moderating our virtual 3-day conference. He's been with us from our very beginning. Our very first conference took place in May 2013. We thank the Allegheny Conference on Community Development for their continued partnership with CEIR and this important series of conferences. We've been blessed in this conference to have heard from key political leaders such as Mayor Bill Peduto, County Exec Rich Fitzgerald, and Pennsylvania Legislator Summer Lee, as well as the President and CEO of Allegheny Conference of Community Development, Stephanie Pashman. We heard a very powerful keynote address from the first African American to ever head a multi-billion-dollar organization in Pittsburgh, Kane Hayes, CEO of Gateway Health, as well as keynote addresses by Art Rooney II, President of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Steve Malnight, President and CEO of Duquesne Light, and Dr. Kathy Wilson-Humphrey, Senior Vice Chancellor of the University of Pittsburgh. In addition, the conference received presentations from Laura McKnight, COO and Vice President of Programs and Services, and Alexandria Johnson, Workplace Solutions Analyst of Vibrant Pittsburgh. Dr. Anupama Jain, Executive Director of the Pittsburgh Gender Equity Commission, Catherine Egan-Kellerman, CEO of the Port Authority of Allegheny County, Jeff Nobers, Executive Director of the Builders Guild of Western Pennsylvania, Megan Stanley, the outgoing Executive Director of the Pittsburgh Human Relations Commission, Valarie Cofield, President and CEO of the Eastern Minority Supplier Development Council, and Tricina Cash, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Corporate Relations at EMSDC. George Robinson, Director of Supplier Diversity and Inclusion for UPMC. We had a response panel on talent attraction and retention, hosted by Greg Spencer, CEO of Randall Industries LLC, which included Esther L. Bush, President and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh, Janine Jelks-Seale, Senior Advisor, Office of Administration, Allegheny County Department of Human Services, and Selena Schmidt, President and CEO of Coro. A response panel on gender equity and human rights led by Janet Manuel, Director, Human Resources and Civil Service, and EEO Diversity and Inclusion Officer for the City of Pittsburgh, which included Lee Fogarty and Amanda Netrauer, both Pittsburgh Gender Equity Commissioners, and a response panel on supplier diversity and development facilitated by Audrey Russo, President and CEO, the Pittsburgh Technology Council, which included Richard Taylor, Esquire, CEO of Imbutech, and Derek Wilson, CEO of the Wilson Group. We had Tricina Cash of EMSDC introduce the new Share video, and Regina L. Scott, Director of Community Engagement and Programs of Gateway Health, to introduce the new Tally, the Advanced Leadership Initiative video. The Corporate Equity Inclusion Roundtable Working Group has hosted what we hope all of you have experienced as 3 days of information, motivation, and indeed inspiration. We thank the Jewish Federation of Greater Pittsburgh for being the key underwriter for this year's conference. We wish outgoing director of the Community Relations Council of the Jewish Federation of Greater Pittsburgh, Jelks-Seale, much success in his new position in Florida. And we wish Laura Cherner success in assuming Josh's former position here in Pittsburgh. We acknowledge the Pittsburgh Pirates for some financial assistance as well. We thank all members of our committed CEIR working group, without whose involvement this event would not have taken place. I want to give a special shout out to Russell Bynum, Tricina Cash, Janine Jelks-Seale, Deb Sadowski, and Rick Williams for their special assistance with the details of this conference. Now the question remains now, what must the city of Pittsburgh and the various partners of our Pittsburgh region do to positively impact the very disturbing statistics unveiled in the September 17, 2019 Pittsburgh Gender Equity Commission and the University of Pittsburgh report, as well as the disturbing reports which came years before? One game plan for action which already exists and which, in our opinion, must be fully reviewed, adopted, and implemented on a permanent basis is the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable's Pittsburgh, Southwestern Pennsylvania Initiative for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion document. This report has been refined over a period of more than 7 years by the members of the CEIR working group and has recently been adopted by Pittsburgh Steelers President Art Rooney II, who has agreed to share our plan with all teams of the National Football League, the NFL. This plan advocates that area companies, corporations, universities, colleges, and nonprofits commit to 3 major pledges. Number 1, adopt the CEIR Comprehensive Rooney Rule with results. The rule advocates that African Americans be considered for all positions, from entry level through the C-suite, and for all contracting and procurement opportunities. The rule embraces an intentional commitment to achieve new, meaningful, and measurable levels of diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout the entire organization. It is also the intention of the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable that full adoption, full implementation of the Comprehensive Rooney Rule with results will positively impact all communities of color over time. Number 2, adopt Ban the Box or some form thereof. The adoption of Ban the Box would allow persons with criminal histories to be considered for employment and would allow the opportunity for their skills to be addressed without prejudgment. Employment applications under the adoption of Ban the Box would exclude the box, which historically has required disclosure of past criminal conviction. With the number of African Americans and other people of color coming out of jails and prisons, this much needed rule will allow these individuals to potentially have access to a new life. Such persons can then be in position to positively contribute to their communities and to assist in the lessening of the negative and violent conditions which continue to plague so many of our Black and poor communities. Number 3, adopt, review, and implement in an ongoing fashion the CEIR Initiative for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion document. This 23-page document describes specific actions that each organization in the Pittsburgh region can utilize that will, over a period of time, significantly increase meaningful and measurable levels of diversity, equity, and inclusion within their specific organization. These documents can be accessed at the CEIR website, ceirpittsburgh.org. That's ceirpittsburgh.org. We can be contacted at 412-212-8775. That's 412-212-8775. You can email us at ceirpittsburgh@gmail.com, ceirpittsburgh@gmail.com. Now, in the coming weeks and months, let us each commit to take another look at what can be done within our various organizations to make the term diversity, equity, and inclusion not just some nice sounding words, but words that are meaningful, words that mean action, words that mean transformation. Our theme for this year's CEIR conference has been reimagining Pittsburgh as a region of equity, inclusion, and impact for African Americans. We hope that one day the Pittsburgh region will be known not as a desert of opportunity for African Americans, but instead an oasis of freedom and a wealth of employment and entrepreneurial opportunity. Let's not wait another day. The first step begins with you. The first step begins with me. And as chairman and CEO of the Black Political Empowerment Project, BPEP, I feel it's important to remind us all that we truly face one of the most historic elections in our lifetime. Each one of us has the opportunity in this election to help impact how our Pittsburgh region, our Commonwealth, and our nation addresses the ongoing and deep racial disparities, which have been clearly unveiled during these past several months of racial and political upheaval. The goals of achieving racial, social, political, economic justice and equality can be achieved to some degree through the political process, which does help influence and impact the climate of how our corporations, universities, colleges, and major nonprofits do business. You have the opportunity to impact this process. We ask that you use it. Our future is at stake. Thanks again for being with us. And on behalf of the Black Political Empowerment Project, the Greater Pittsburgh Coalition Against Violence, and the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable Working Group, I thank you for being with us again. Be with us next year. This is Tim Stevens.